Welcome to Jewish Cinémathèque, where we meet some of the important faces involved with films that tackle aspects of the Jewish experience. Today I'm joined by writer and director Dani Rosenberg, whose second feature film, The Vanishing Soldier, was an official selection at the Locarno Film Festival and winner of the top award at the Haifa Film Festival. His most recent film, his third feature, is Of Dogs and Men, filmed right after the horrific events of October 7th. Both are powerful studies of Israeli life and society and were selections of the Israel Film Festival that took place at the Meyerson JCC in Manhattan. I first encountered Dani's work when I screened his brilliant 40-minute student film Homeland, Beit Avi, that dealt with the very essence of what it meant to be the new Jew in the new state of Israel. Dani, welcome to Jewish Cinémathèque.
Thank you.
These are tough days for Israeli filmmakers. I go to festivals and I see that you rarely see an Israeli film there. And your films tackle important yet controversial and difficult subjects. Are you finding it that much harder post-October 7th to make films, or it's been like this for a while?
Definitely it's harder. But, I feel embarrassed to talk about my problems. So the problems now in Israel and Gaza are so horrific. I think this is the world. So yes, there is also a problem of making films now that will accept to festivals. That's true.
So, just everything is just so horrific today, and we're just hoping for the return of all the hostages and for the end of this misery that's going on and encompassing Palestinians and Israelis.
Amen.
In the course of your filmmaking, I mean, filmmakers need crews. And crews are out there doing miluim, doing reserve duty for 150, 250 days. Are filmmakers having difficulty just pulling films together? And the other question for you, is the government no longer supporting cinema in the way it once did?
So I will start maybe with the second question, because please. The Minister of Culture tried to fight the freedom of the Israeli film funds.
Explain what the Israeli Film Fund does.
There are a couple of funds that support creators like me, and it's supposed to be free of any political interfere. And in the last years, because we had this extreme right-wing government, so they try to interfere in the fund work. But the directors of the funds, and I can mention Noah Regev, the head of the Israeli Film Fund, are fighting back. And if we can talk about this Khan, that Nadav Lapid's new film, Yes, that is highly critical for the government, was there, and the film supported by the Israeli Film Fund. So now they still holding on, but it's a struggle, and I don't know if in the years to come we will see still Israeli films that are in a way critical for the government. I hope so, but they try to win it, the government.
You know, I happen to be in Israel, in Yerushalayim, and the former Prime Minister, Arik Sharon, at the time, who was head of Ministry of Absorption,
yes,
that gave funding films, was asked, why are you funding films that question or raise issues with Israel, Israeli society, Israeli life? And his answer was, because we're a democracy.
Yes, yes. But now there are new, extremely radical right-wing forces that don't believe in democracy anymore.
Yeah, let's jump to.
But let's jump to film.
Yeah, let's jump to film. I don't think we're going to solve the other problem right now in this room. But
Yes.
so when you made The Vanishing Soldier, it was made pre-October 7th.
Yes.
And yet a centerpiece happens by chance to be the supposed kidnapping of an Israeli soldier. It's just fascinating where you just, seeing into the future, whatever. And the consequences of that when a soldier is kidnapped and the Israeli history of protecting its hostages and soldiers in the field and going to retrieve them and all of these things that certainly Israel has been all about. How did you come up with that story, and was it the Gilad Shalit story that sort of influenced you? Of course, Gilad Shalit, for the viewers who don't remember,
Yes.
was the young man who was kidnapped,
Yes.
hostage, and then there was a major exchange, many hundreds of Palestinian prisoners exchanged for one Israeli soldier.
So first, when I was writing the script with my partner Amir Kliger.
This is back in 2021, 2022?
Before.
Even before, okay.
It took us many years to raise the money for the film.
Isn't that the case with most Israeli filmmakers?
Yes, but I think in my case it was difficult even more because I think it took me 10 years to raise the money. And in the end, we got the money and we shot the film in 22 and the beginning of 23. And the film deals with a war between, a war in Gaza.
So it's sort of modeled after one of the many wars that were...
Actually, I imagined a new war, but I didn't...
You didn't really imagine it that...
Yes, but I don't think it's a prophetic film because, this feeling that we are actually sitting on the top of a volcano and it's going to explode any minute, I had in mind, but many people in Israel had in their mind as well. The people in the kibbutzim knew it will happen. And the people from the left wing were talking about it for years, that this occupation and the situation in Gaza will explode in our face. And the people in the right wing talk about it, that there is no sense of giving weapons to the Hamas, because in the end it will explode. So actually...
Weapons through Qatar.
Yeah, but in the end, Benjamin Netanyahu supported the regime of the Hamas through money that from the Qatar, that the Qatar, he approved it. So many people talk about it, but the only people that closed their eyes were the people from the center in Israel, from not the right wing and not the left wing, but the center. And I think the film talk about the center. And that's why I want the protagonist of the film, this soldier, return to Tel Aviv, because this city is like, we try to live our life like we are in New York, but we are not in New York.
Although you go to Tel Aviv any day and you feel like you're in New York.
Yes, but we are also close to the gates of hell.
Right. And so the soldier has what? He's gone AWOL. He's left his barracks.
Yes.
It's an interesting story, and in reading your biography, at one point you yourself, as a young soldier, had some questions.
Yes, I had questions, and I also ran away, like the protagonist of the film. But actually, I returned in a couple of hours. I can tell you...
You went for a little walk.
Yes.
Little spazier.
Exactly. It was at night, and I decided to just, start to run away, and it was in the desert, and I didn't find the road, so I returned back to the camp because that was the only light that I saw, and no one ever knew about this failed escape. So, but maybe back then it was, for me, like the seeds of the story.
And here's a trailer from the film Hachayel HaNe'elam, The Vanishing Soldier.
אמא, סליחה, אני ברחתי היום בבוקר.
מה עשית? מה זה הלכת? אתה מכאן הולך לכלא 6, אתה מבין את זה?
אני רציתי לראות את שירי, אוקיי? געגעתי אלייך.
חייל חטוף ללא ספק תסריט אימים של צה"ל בוודאי ברצועת עזה.
אתה יכול להגיד לי במה מדובר? שלומי.
שירי, אני קצת הסתבכתי.
ב-5:41 התקבלה ההודעה הראשונה שהוא נהדר. כנראה שהוא נחטף, ובמקרה הכי גרוע הוא לא שרד את זה.
You are the spirit of Jewish people protecting a Jewish land.
He stole the telephone of my husband. אתה מבין את המשמעות של מה שאתה עשית?
שירי!
כמו דייג, כולם זורקים חכות, כולם. מוסד, מודיעין, שב"כ, כולם.
הבן שלי הוא ילד אחראי, הוא חזק, הוא נאמן, הוא יודע לתפקד במצבי לחץ. והוא לא מת.
In this story, he actually does leave. And again, without really providing any spoilers, that's what the story's about. Were there any films that...
But it's also a question, you mentioned Homeland.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel it's like actually transmission
Yeah.
of the same character.
Can you just tell the audience a little bit about Homeland?
Homeland,
One of my favorite films.
so Goldman tells the story about a Holocaust survivor that came to Israel during the 48 war, and they put him in some military stand, and he escaped in the end.
Yeah, but the military spot is sort of like in God's land, and
Yes, it's a little bit surreal, and it's in Yiddish, all the film. But it's the same story, to try to fight for your own identity, that it's not the identity that the country, that Israel want you to be, that like the new Jewish, like strong and a fighter, and cut your all the connection with your feminine side also.
how was the film received? I know it was nominated for many Ophir Awards. It won, I believe, Best Cinematography.
Yes, it received very well in Israel, and in Europe. It's also it's screened in France, and it was a big success. Not in the US at all. No one wanted to touch it after October 7. You know, we had
So you made it before October 7th,
Yes.
but it was released after.
Yes, exactly. The premiere in Haifa Film Festival was at October 5th. And then, you know, I called Amir Kliger, my writing partner, and I told him, okay, we have to put it in some drawer, and no one will see the film again. But what's happened is that Tel Aviv start to waking up after a couple of weeks, and it's begun to be exactly like the film. A city that celebrates itself completely to forget what's happening only 1 hour from it. And also a lot of soldiers, especially reserve soldiers, that somehow knew about the film. Some of them were my students that watched the film in the Haifa Film Festival, called me and told me that they were in Gaza and they returned back and they feel like the protagonists of the film. That actually no one understands them, and they feel that they felt that the film in a way, tells their story. So I felt it's important to distribute it. And we did it a couple of months from now, in October 24, a year from the war.
Wow. The cinematography is incredible. Your choices in terms of how you shot that film with your camera director. Were there any films that you could think of that may have influenced you?
Many. You know, we had in mind all the paranoid films of the 70s, the American paranoid film, like, you know, De Palma and so on, of the 70s. And
Brian De Palma's work.
Yeah, and also about if you talk about the movement, so I imagine shots and sequence of Leo Carac's films. And also I imagine him, the character, a bit like a Buster Keaton, you know? Like there are really like slapstick scenes in the film. So I imagine him like Buster Keaton that's running away from the cops.
You went back and forth between close-ups and long shots,
Yes.
and extreme long shots. I mean, there's a scene which I loved where he's sort of walking along the dunes.
Yes.
Sort of reminded me a little bit of a combination of Bergman and Rafi Bukai.
You just say, wow, I want to see this combination. So if I made it, it's amazing.
Let's jump. So it just for the viewer, it's a powerful film, and it's almost as if Dani has put out a story that speaks to today's, as he mentioned, today's Israel, today's Tel Aviv. You then decided to do something very unusual, playing with the narrative film form, which typically has your protagonist, the good guys, whatever, which we see in The Vanishing Soldier, and you made of dogs and men. So what approach did you take? Why did you take it? And how did you find your cast?
So after October 7, I was at October 7 in Busan, in South Korea, at the film festival there. And I returned devastated home. And I just watched television. And I was so close, but so far away from the events. And, you know, my first feature film, The Death of Cinema and My Father Too, I made after my father got cancer. He was dying. And I just have this intuition, not intuition, just kind of motivation or just libido to take camera and to shoot his last days for a couple of reasons. First, maybe I wanted to understand reality more because the reality becomes so chaotic, and I try to organize reality. And secondly, I wanted to use the camera as a shield against reality. And after October 7, I felt the same. I felt that I just need to hold on in cinema to understand myself, to understand the situation more. So I wrote this, not a script, I wrote this story about a young teenager girl that she's looking for her dog after the massacre in her kibbutz.
Kibbutz.
I shot in Nir Oz, but back then I didn't have
Could be any of the kibbutzim that were.
And I just have this motivation to go there with the story and to find people and make them part of the film. And that's what we did at November, a couple of weeks after. And we went there. We shot the film in Nir Oz, in the kibbutz.
The tragic kibbutz.
Yes. 1 out of 4 people there were murdered or kidnapped. And we met there Nathan, that he's one of the founders of the kibbutz, and he told us his story. You know, his 2 grandsons were kidnapped back then, And so he became one part of the film, and also I wanted to talk about what happened in Gaza. So I got a testimony of a Palestinian in the other side, and combined it in the film. And we met an animal rescuer that was working back then to find animals.
So these were real people?
All of the people in the film are real. It was important for me, first because I felt that I cannot write fictional characters while it's still happening. So, and secondly, because I feel that this testimony is important for the future, for the far future, but also for the near future, because now, when now I'm looking at the film, it's look completely surreal. What's happened there a couple of weeks after the massacre, and to actually understand the reaction of the feeling, or the reaction of the people, their feeling to what's happening, what happened in Israel and happens in Gaza. So I feel it's important to document it for the future.
And here's a trailer from the film Al Klavim Va'anashim, of Dogs and Men.
מקווה שנשארה פה ואני צריכה להחזיר אותה.
איפה זה פה? בקיבוץ? בבית?
מה, היא שלך?
כן.
חמודה.
אני ידעתי שאם הם ייכנסו, הם יבצעו טבח, אבל לא חשבתי שזה יקרה.
ראינו מסדרונים של ילדים מגואלים בדם. פשוט לא נתפס.
יש לי שם חבר, ואני בטוח שהוא רוצה שלום.
I lost more than 20 people of my close family, and I buried them with my own hands.
אז מה עם שאר הילדים של הקיבוץ?
לא יודעת ממש מה קורה איתם, אם הם בכלל חיים או מתים, אין לנו מושג.
אין יצור יותר נורא מבני אדם, אין יצור יותר אכזרי מבני אדם. ועדיין אני חיה ביניכם, ואני מעדיפה כלבים.
אין פה כלבים, נשמה.
היא איפשהו.
אני התחבאתי מתחת למיטה.
ולא ראו אותך?
אסור לך להיות פה.
היום הלב שלי נפל לרגע. האדמה עדיין קרה מהלילה, וזה מתעתע. המחשבות הרעות התחילו.
It's almost like an ode, a poem. It's a documentary, but it isn't a documentary.
Yes.
And how about your lead actor?
So because it was so spontaneously made, so we just had like 1 day, couple of hours of auditions, and she came and she was genius.
And she's the only actor.
She's the only actor.
And
yes.
This is her first performance.
Yes, actually the second one, because she also played in another feature that will come out soon. But yes, I met her and she was 18. She was so smart and intelligent and touching, and without Ori we will not have a film.
Now you shot it also in a 4:3 ratio instead of a normal movie theater, sort of like
yes.
the old. Why did you do that?
A couple of reasons. First, I want to depart myself from reality, from news. And you had back then already these images of the border with Gaza, the kibbutz, and so on. So I wanted to look a bit distance from what we already know. And also, there is some kind of a claustrophobic feeling in this ratio, because you don't have a space, and I want it to be part of the film, this feeling.
And yet you break away from that with an incredible animation sequence.
Yes.
Tell me about, I mean, here you are making a sort of a realistic, almost black and white reality, and then boom, sequence.
There is one dream sequence.
And it's widescreen.
Yes, and I want to open the screen for this sequence of the animation because, yes, this is the only part of the film that she could had kind of optimistic feeling for a second, and she imagined what's happened to her dog, and the dog is running away to Gaza. And
the dog who had been in the kibbutz when Hamas came in.
And that's also for me was an opportunity to talk about the Gaza side of the defense and what is happening there, because she could only imagine it also. She because there is a big part of the film of this telegram or whatever Instagram footage. There are so pornographic footage of only people that were massacring Israel and people that were massacring Gaza.
Yeah,
and it's all mixed together.
I mean, you call it pornographic. I mean, it's what we've been seeing.
Yeah, but it's like snuff,
Right, it's
I
awful.
call it pornographic because
you are seeing murder.
Yeah, and you cannot feel, you cannot, you detach because you see all these images and and that's like pornographic images. It's make the opposite of what you maybe wish to be more close to reality, because it's look like it's just part of bodies. There is no you cannot understand the whole story.
When you released the film, how ready were Israelis to see it?
They were not, and they are still not ready to see it.
Because most American Jews certainly have a lot of difficulty with the subject.
Yes, but in Israel, I felt that, when we shot the film, I was sure it will be screened only after the war. We were all sure about it. But now we're already almost 2 years, and still look far away, the end of it. And I felt that it's in Israel we are too close to reality, so we cannot sit and watch reality in the film. But I don't think it's so important. Maybe the reference for the film was a amazing film called Medium Cool, the '68 film of Haskell Wexler.
Haskell Wexler.
Yes, about the Chicago riots. And now, people understand the Chicago riots because of the film. Back then in '68, I think it came out in 1970, but it was not important. So right. I feel that the film will have his path, and I don't need to push it.
I know we're coming to an end, but this whole notion of, do you make films to represent such things? I know that Elie Wiesel had a lot of problems with it. I know a lot of philosophers have difficulty.
Of course.
And yet, it's sort of your decision as a filmmaker was, you had to do this.
Yes, it's like I throw myself in this philosophical discussion about how you represent the reality when it still unfolds.
The use of your cinematic skills are unbelievable. I mean, even to the point where at one point where she's holding up her iPhone and sort of looking at the images, both in the kibbutzim and in Gaza. Powerful. The films actually are The Vanishing Soldier and Of Dogs and Men. They are two powerful films that really tackle today's Israel from a very unique angle. I encourage everybody to look for them. Hopefully they'll be streaming very soon or in a theater near you or at a festival. Dani, thank you so much for joining me, and I
Thank
wish you
you.
continued success with all of your future work.
Amen. Thank you.